Why was it Eric who got to bask in the glow of fortune? From the moment my eyes fell upon Judy, an unrelenting love bloomed within me. She was all I could think about, all I wanted, all I craved. Yet here she was, on her fifth date with Eric, her hand laced comfortably in his, her body leaning into his as though the world had disappeared. They even kissed, right in front of me, shattering my fragile heart into pieces. Judy was flawless, an embodiment of perfection. Let me paint you a picture of her allure. Standing at 5'8", she was slender without being frail, her figure exuding a natural elegance. Her hair, a cascade of raven black curls, framed her face and draped just below her shoulders, full of life and vitality. It was the kind of hair that begged to be touched, fingers aching to comb through those luscious curls. Her face was a masterpiece, like that of a mischievous angel who'd fallen to earth. Her skin appeared as soft as silk, glowing with clarity that made it impossible to look away. Her dark eyebrows, carefully shaped into precise curves, framed her captivating eyes, drawing attention to the windows of her soul. Ah, those eyes! How could I describe their magic? They held a depth, a mystery that pulled you in, yet sparkled with a playful, almost wicked charm. Judy needed no heavy makeup to amplify her beauty. A hint of lipstick was all she wore, just enough to highlight her full, inviting lips that made you dream of stolen moments and whispered secrets. Today, she had chosen a red and white striped sweater, modest in its neckline, but offering no respite to my imagination. Beneath the fabric, her flawless form hinted at the presence of perfection. Her breasts, sculpted by the gods, seemed to defy the limits of the human form. They made the sweater an accomplice to temptation, their shape and size so exquisite that I could feel my pulse quicken just looking at her. Her blue jeans hugged her figure in all the right ways, accentuating curves that seemed designed to entrance. The thought of what lay beneath them sent my mind spiraling into fantasies I could barely contain. Every movement she made, every shift of her hips, every effortless smile, only tightened the grip she had on my heart. Eric couldn't be blamed for wanting her. After all, she was an epitome of desirability, the kind of woman who seemed almost unattainable. But it didn't sit right with me. Why him? Why not me? She was everything I'd ever hoped for, and it felt like fate itself was mocking me. It wasn't fair. Judy should have been mine, she belonged with me. As the three of us sat together at dinner, my mind raced, spinning thoughts into plans. Someday she would be mine. She didn't realize it yet, but our story was destined to be written. All I needed was the right moment to start crafting it. It was obvious I couldn't just confront Eric and say, "I want Judy, hand her over." That wasn't how the world worked, and Eric certainly wouldn't oblige. If I wanted Judy to be mine, I'd have to be clever, calculated. It pained me to think this way about Eric, who had been my friend for so long, but he was the one who'd stepped in first, snatching up Judy before I even had a chance. In my mind, he deserved whatever was coming to him. At first, I toyed with the idea of creating a rift between them, perhaps fabricating a story about Eric cheating on her. But the risk was too high. Judy might simply leave him and disappear from my life entirely. No, I needed a strategy that was more intricate, more foolproof. One that gave her time to see me, to recognize my worth, so when my plan reached its climax, she would have no choice but to turn to me, the loyal, caring man who'd been there all along, waiting to comfort her. I spent countless hours imagining different scenarios, spinning elaborate ideas in my head. Each one was scrutinized and discarded until finally, a stroke of brilliance struck me. It was bold, audacious, but it was perfect. The key to separating Eric and Judy wasn't to drive her away from him, it was to transform Eric into someone she couldn't desire. Someone who no longer fit her vision of the perfect partner. The answer was simple. I would turn Eric into a woman. It was clear to me that Judy adored being a woman, and she loved being with a man. Her every gesture, her every sigh when Eric kissed her, spoke of a deep appreciation for masculinity. If Eric were no longer a man, if he was stripped of the qualities that drew her to him, she would naturally seek a replacement. Someone strong, someone masculine, someone like me. With my goals set, I began preparing meticulously. I delved into research, gathering books, pharmaceuticals, and every resource I could find to make the transformation possible. I immersed myself in learning, studying every detail, leaving no room for error. This wasn't just about Eric, it was about Judy, about us, about a future that I could already see so clearly in my mind. When I finally felt ready, every piece of the plan in place, I knew it was time to act. The transformation would begin, and with it, the end of Eric as a rival and the start of a new chapter for Judy and me. The first step was clear. I needed to chip away at Eric's desire for Judy. If he wasn't drawn to her anymore, their bond would weaken, leaving room for me to step in. Biology, I realized, held the key. The human body is ruled by hormones, and by altering the delicate balance of those chemicals, I could achieve my goal. Testosterone, the essence of male drive, would be my first target. By replacing it with estrogen, the primary hormone that defines femininity, Eric's transformation would begin. The effects would be gradual but undeniable. His body would start reshaping itself, adapting to the flood of estrogen coursing through his veins. His chest would begin to develop, forming soft, natural breasts. His skin would take on a delicate, supple texture, and his hips would subtly widen as his body stored fat in new places. But the physical changes were only the beginning. Without testosterone, his libido would plummet. Over time, his attraction to women, including Judy, would fade. In its place, estrogen could awaken something entirely new, a shift in his desires, perhaps even a budding attraction to men. It was a poetic reversal. The very essence of his masculinity would erode, leaving behind someone entirely different. The brilliance of this plan lay in its efficiency. It worked on two fronts simultaneously. Eric's transformation into womanhood would progress alongside his waning interest in Judy. To cement the idea in my mind, I even chose a name for the person he would become, Gwen. It was poetic justice. There had once been a girl named Gwen who Eric had stolen from me. Now the tables would turn, and Eric would wear her name as he became someone unrecognizable. With the hormone therapy mapped out, I turned to another tool in my arsenal, psychology. Hypnosis caught my attention, a technique that felt almost magical in its potential. I read about how skilled hypnotists could bypass the conscious mind, diving straight into the subconscious, where they could plant ideas and suggestions the subject wouldn't even remember. The thought was electrifying. Eric wouldn't stand a chance. Through hypnosis, I could shape and nurture an inner female identity within him, bit by bit. Each trance would deepen the divide between his current self and the burgeoning Gwen within. Over time, she would grow stronger, her presence impossible to ignore. Eventually, she wouldn't just be a part of him, she would take over entirely. I pictured the moment of triumph with a thrill. One day, Eric, now fully Gwen, would look Judy in the eye and tell her it was over, confessing that he was a woman and no longer the man she thought she loved. It would be exquisite, the perfect culmination of my plan. Judy would be free, and I would be there, waiting to catch her as she fell. Eric came over Saturday afternoon, ready for some downtime before his evening plans with Judy. Baseball, beer, and the casual camaraderie of friendship set the scene. It was all so ordinary, so perfect. "I love your big screen TV, Mike," he said, settling in comfortably. "Thanks," I replied. "What better way to watch the game? Beer or scotch?" "It's early. I'll stick with beer," he said. "I just picked up some imported beer. Let's try that. It's supposed to be top-notch." "Sounds great," he said, with no clue of the plan I had already set into motion. The imported beer, a perfect cover for the unfamiliar taste, carried more than just hops and barley. It held the first dose of the drug that would pave the way to Eric's transformation. By the time he finished the second glass, the effects began to take hold. He grew sluggish, his eyelids heavy. This was my moment. Following the intricate instructions I had memorized, I guided him into a trance. His resistance was already dulled by the drugs, and soon his conscious mind faded, leaving him entirely open to my words. It was surreal, exhilarating even, to see him so pliable. "Eric," I said, steady and commanding, "you'd hear my words, and you will obey." I will obey, he murmured, his voice faint and distant. Eric, you are not a man. You are a woman. Deep down, you've always known this. Say it, tell me what you are. I am a woman, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. I smiled, the plan unfolding flawlessly. I continued, layering suggestion upon suggestion, molding his thoughts and desires. I spoke of long hair, soft curves, makeup, and dresses. I painted a vision of femininity so vivid that it took root in his subconscious. He repeated each affirmation, his voice growing steadier as he embraced the identity I was crafting for him. When you see a woman's chest, I said, you long for the same. Tell me you wish for breasts. I wish for breasts, he repeated. And when you see a woman's slender waist and flat crotch, you wish your body looked the same. Tell me you want this. I want this, he said, the words mechanical yet sincere. The final touch was to shift his desires, severing the connection to women like Judy. I planted the idea that intimacy with women no longer appealed to him, it didn't align with who he was becoming. You don't want to be with women anymore, I said. I don't want to be with women, he echoed. With each word, I nudged him further down the path I'd laid out, binding him to his new identity. The time came to solidify the transformation with the tools I prepared, the hormones and blockers. These pills, I said, presenting them, will make your body match who you truly are inside. Take them, Gwen. He complied without hesitation, swallowing the pills along with his fate. Before concluding, I introduced a safeguard to ensure Eric's emerging self, Gwen, wouldn't surface prematurely. I explained that she would remain hidden, dormant, until I called for her with a specific phrase. She agreed, or rather, when agreed, her new identity beginning to assert itself even in her trance. I snapped my fingers, jolting him back to wakefulness. His expression shifted, as if he'd merely dozed off during the game. Up from your nap? I asked casually. I fell asleep, he asked, surprised. Yeah, 2 beers and a boring pitcher's duel, it knocked you out cold. He laughed it off, none the wiser, and after a brief chat, he left for his date with Judy. As the door closed behind him, I felt a surge of triumph. He had no idea what had just begun, no inkling of the transformation already underway. The first step was complete. Gwen had taken her place within Eric, and it was only a matter of time before she claimed the rest of him. By the time Monday rolled around, I knew it was crucial to act. The dose of hormones I'd given Eric on Saturday wouldn't last forever. 5 days was the window before his body processed and eliminated them completely. To maintain the momentum, I needed another opportunity to reinforce the progress and ensure Gwen's continued emergence. Fortunately, an opportunity fell into my lap when Eric invited me to dinner with him and Judy. Since I was driving, I had control of the situation, and I already knew exactly what to do. On the way to meet Judy, I casually pulled into a parking lot by a familiar park. This was a regular spot for us to hang out, smoke, or have a quick beer. Nothing unusual about it in Eric's eyes, but this time I had a much more specific purpose. With practiced ease, I lulled him into a trance, speaking the words that now unlocked his hidden self. Gwen, where are you? I asked, the phrase slipping from my lips like a spell. Right here, came the response, steady and clear. Hello, Gwen, I said. Hello, Mike, she replied. Her voice was smoother now, less groggy, as though Gwen had gained a stronger foothold in Eric's subconscious. It was an encouraging sign. Gwen, what are you? I asked, probing gently. I am a woman, she affirmed without hesitation. Yes, Gwen, you are a woman, I said, my tone firm but supportive. Now tell me, do you want more of your female hormones? Do you want them to help your breasts grow? Do you want them to reshape your body so you can become even more of the woman you are? Oh yes, please, Gwen answered eagerly. It was exactly what I'd been waiting to hear. From my bag, I retrieved the next round of pills, estrogen, progesterone, an androgen blocker, and for good measure, a pack of birth control pills to amplify the effect. Here you go, I said, handing them to her along with a beer to wash them down. The little pink one is special, it'll give you even more hormones. Make sure you take them all. She didn't hesitate, swallowing the pills in a single motion, as if eager to take the next step toward her transformation. "Gwen," I continued, leaning in, "you're a woman. You want to dress in women's clothes. You want to grow your fingernails long so you can paint them with pretty colors. You want earrings to dangle from your ears. You want makeup to enhance your beautiful face. Tell me, Gwen, what do you want to be?" "I want to be a pretty girl," she said, the words filled with yearning. "Yes, Gwen," I said, my voice softening. "You are a woman. You want so badly to wear skirts, to feel the swish of the fabric around your legs. You dream of having big, beautiful breasts so you can wear a bra, don't you? Tell me what you want, Gwen." "I want big breasts so I can wear a bra," she replied, her voice carrying a note of longing that was unmistakable. In that moment, I knew the transformation was progressing perfectly. Gwen wasn't just an idea anymore. She was becoming a fully formed identity, one that craved expression and freedom. This was only the beginning, but the groundwork was laid. Each step brought her closer to the surface, and Eric further away from reclaiming himself. I could see the future unfolding, and it was glorious. The evening unfolded just as I had hoped, with each piece of my plan falling seamlessly into place. The bistro, the drinks, the conversation, it all served as the perfect stage for the next act in my carefully orchestrated play. Before leaving the car, I had reinforced Gwen's presence within Eric, pushing her further to the surface. "Tonight, we will go out to dinner with another woman. Her name is Judy," I had told him. "You want to be just like her. Study her. Everything she is, you wish that you were. You want to sit like her, move like her, dress like her. You want to be her. You have no interest in her because you want to be her. Tell me you wish to be just like Judy in every way." "I wish I was just like Judy in every way," Eric had repeated, Gwen's voice quietly lacing his words. "Good, Gwen. You are a woman. You grow stronger every day, and you want to take over Eric's mind. Soon, there will be no more Eric, only you. Tell me you are a woman." "I am a woman," he'd replied, the conviction in his voice growing with every repetition. As I snapped him back into his conscious self, I downed the last of my beer and added, "Come on, dude, finish yours already. You're drinking so slow, it's like drinking with a chick." He gave me an odd look before slamming back his drink, just as I expected. At the bistro, Judy was already seated at the bar, glowing in a black skirt that barely reached her knees and a white top with delicate straps that showcased her bare shoulders and arms. Her legs stretched out like an invitation. She was stunning, as always. "That's a really nice outfit," Eric said to her. Then, as if catching himself, he added, "I'd like..." "Like what?" Judy asked, her tone playful but curious. "Oh, it's nothing," he said quickly, shaking his head. I caught the moment and smiled inwardly. Gwen was surfacing, her longing to emulate Judy slipping through Eric's facade. Even his behavior had shifted. He hadn't greeted her with a kiss as usual, and throughout dinner, he was far less tactile than I'd ever seen. He sat back, passive and detached, leaving me free to dominate the conversation with Judy. The change in dynamics was palpable. Judy's attention naturally gravitated toward me as Eric faded into the background, more like a quiet observer than an active participant. His programming was working brilliantly. He was losing interest in Judy, and she was beginning to notice me in ways she hadn't before. After dinner, I managed to steer the group back to my place. Once there, I kept Judy close whether we were talking, laughing, or sharing glances. She stayed by my side. Even when I stepped away briefly for drinks or to take a phone call in the den, the connection between us remained strong. Eric, meanwhile, lingered on the periphery, passive and subdued. Gwen was taking over, her identity solidifying with every passing moment. I could see it in the way Eric looked at Judy, not with desire, but with admiration, almost envy. He was slipping further into her shadow while I stepped into the light. By the end of the night, I was elated. My plan was advancing flawlessly. Judy was beginning to see me as more than just a friend, and Eric's transformation into Gwen was proceeding beautifully. Everything was falling into place, and I couldn't wait to see where the next step would lead. 2 days later, my plan gained an unexpected boost that sent my heart soaring. Judy called me, her voice soft and warm as she asked if she could come over. My pulse quickened. Of course, I agreed immediately, and as soon as I hung up, I sprang into action. I tidied up the place, making sure it looked cozy and inviting. I even dashed to the corner store to pick up a couple of bottles of her favorite red wine, knowing it would set the perfect mood. By the time she knocked on my door, I was ready. The wine was poured, the lighting just right, and my anticipation was through the roof. She sat down next to me on the couch, her presence lighting up the room. We talked about everything and nothing, the kind of easy, flowing conversation that made the hours slip away unnoticed. Time lost all meaning as we laughed, shared stories, and sipped wine. Before I realized it, the clock read 11 o'clock. I couldn't believe how quickly the evening had passed. It felt like she had just arrived, and yet the night was already drawing to a close. But I didn't mind. The warmth of her laughter and the sparkle in her eyes had made it one of the most magical evenings of my life. As she stood to leave, my heart swelled with a mix of joy and longing. And then, as if to seal the night in perfection, she leaned in and gave me a soft peck on the cheek. My skin tingled where her lips had brushed against me, and I felt a rush of elation so intense I could hardly breathe. When I finally went to bed, I was floating. This was at the beginning of everything I'd been working toward. Judy was already pulling away from Eric, gravitating toward me instead. The spark was there. I could feel it. All I needed to do now was keep nudging Eric further down the path of transformation. Soon, he would no longer be a factor in her life, and she would be mine completely. That night, as I lay in bed, I replayed every moment over and over, the happiest I could ever remember being. From that day forward, Judy became a near-constant presence in my life. She started seeking me out for dinners, movies, and long conversations that stretched into the night. Her visits were magical, each one filling me with a sense of closeness I had never felt before. Meanwhile, my work with Eric, or rather, Gwen, continued unabated. The transformation was progressing beautifully, and Eric didn't seem to notice the changes taking hold of him. I began spotting small but significant signs of his feminization. One day, as he stared at Judy's impressive chest, I caught him unconsciously placing his hands on his own, cupping them as if he already had breasts of his own. The sight was exhilarating. Gwen's influence was seeping into his actions, even without his conscious awareness. He wasn't just drawn to Judy anymore, he was starting to become. By the end of the month, the dynamic between the three of us had shifted entirely. Judy and I spent nearly every evening together, while Eric drifted further into the background. It became clear she was losing interest in him, especially after one unforgettable dinner. I had picked her up, and Eric showed up later to join us. When he sat down, we immediately noticed he was wearing makeup, foundation, a hint of blush, even a faint trace of eyeliner. His nails were painted too, a pale pink that shimmered under the restaurant lights. Judy, ever kind, said nothing, and I stayed quiet, knowing full well that I had planted the idea in his mind. But Eric acted as if nothing was unusual, completely unaware of how he appeared. Gwen was gaining control, subtly and steadily, and I couldn't have been happier. That night ended on a high note for me. After dinner, I went home with Judy. Our evenings together had grown more intimate over time, often culminating in hours of making out on her couch. Sometimes we'd fall asleep like that, only for me to wake in the middle of the night, thoughtfully covered by a blanket, while she retreated to her bed. I longed to join her there, to cross that final threshold in our relationship. As we cuddled and kissed that night, I thought this would finally be the moment. I took off my shirt, and she placed her hands on my chest, her touch sending shivers down my spine. But then she paused, pulling back slightly and meeting my eyes. "Mike," she said softly. "Yes, my love," I replied, eager to help her out of her shirt. She stopped me, holding my hand and speaking firmly but gently. "You have a nice body," she said, "but I need to tell you something. All that body hair on your chest, your arms, your legs, it really turns me off. If you ever want to be in my bed, you'll need to get rid of it. All of it." I don't want to see hair anywhere except your head and between your legs." Her words hit me like a splash of cold water. The evening didn't end the way I'd hoped, but we talked for a while longer, as we always did. Time flew by, and before I knew it, it was late again. Despite the setback, I couldn't stay frustrated. I loved her too much. Every moment with her felt precious, even when things didn't go as planned. The next day, I acted on her request without hesitation. I went to the store and bought hair removal cream, determined to make myself exactly what she wanted. That evening, I stood in the shower, applying the pungent-smelling cream to every part of my body. When I rinsed it off, I watched the hair wash away, some of it collecting in the drain. My skin felt smoother, softer, cleaner, even, and I couldn't deny that I liked the result. Anticipating irritation, I had also bought a lilac-scented lotion, which reminded me of Judy. After drying off, I slathered it over my skin, enjoying the silky softness it left behind. The scent lingered, making me smile as I prepared for my next date with her. I took extra care with my appearance that evening. My hair had been growing longer, thanks to a special tonic I'd been using, and I brushed it meticulously to give it a fuller, shinier look. It wasn't quite as long as I wanted yet, but it was getting there. I imagined it cascading in curls, framing my face in the same beautiful way Judy's did. I was ready for her. Everything I did, every step I took, was to bring myself closer to the life I dreamed of with Judy. And now, with each passing day, that dream felt more attainable than ever. That evening, as I arrived at Judy's place, my excitement was palpable. I was smooth, hairless, and ready to fulfill her every desire, hoping this would finally be the night I'd join her in bed. She greeted me with a smile and a glass of wine, her elegance lighting up the room. We began to talk, her presence intoxicating me more than the drink ever could. "It's 9 o'clock, Mike. Are you ready for dinner?" she asked casually. I froze. 9 o'clock? It felt as though I'd just walked through the door. Somehow, hours had evaporated in what seemed like moments. I shook off the oddity, focusing instead on the way her eyes sparkled, how her every move seemed designed to mesmerize. I caught myself running my fingers through my hair and batting my lashes at her in a flirtatious gesture. Her smile in response was my reward. We sat down to dinner, the conversation flowing as easily as the wine. When the meal was over, I insisted on cleaning up. She handed me the apron I often wore when helping her around the house. I tied it on, careful not to get my clothes wet or stained, as I did the dishes and tidied the kitchen. Once finished, I washed my hands thoroughly, ensuring they smelled fresh and clean, no trace of dish soap lingering to spoil the night ahead. We moved to the couch, sharing another glass of wine as the atmosphere grew warmer, more intimate. We kissed, her hands roaming over my freshly smooth skin, and she made a point of complimenting how soft and perfect it felt. My heart raced as she took my hand, leading me to her bedroom. The anticipation was electric. Inside, the room felt like a private sanctuary. Judy kissed me deeply, then reached forward to unbutton my shirt, slowly slipping it off my shoulders. Her hands explored my chest, warm and lingering. She smiled, then knelt gracefully to undo my belt buckle. One by one, she removed my pants, socks, and finally my boxers, using her teeth for the last part with a playful giggle. In a moment, I was naked, standing before her, while she remained fully dressed. Then Judy began her own slow, deliberate undressing. She unzipped her sleek black skirt, carefully laying it on the bed to avoid wrinkles. Next, she removed her black tank top, revealing a breathtaking ensemble of matching black lace bra, panties, and a garter belt holding up thigh-high stockings with intricate lace bands. With her dark hair cascading over her shoulders, she was an image of perfection, a vision I could hardly believe was real. She reached behind her to unclasp her bra, sliding it off her shoulders with practiced elegance. As she handed it to me, I could feel its warmth, her essence still in the fabric. "You want to know how it feels, don't you?" she asked, her voice low and teasing. The question caught me off guard, but my answer came instinctively, without hesitation. "Yes," I said. "Go ahead," she urged. Put it on. I'll help you. I hesitated for only a moment before slipping my arms through the straps, pulling the lacy cups against my chest. She moved behind me, her hands skillfully fastening the band with a firm snap. The sensation was foreign but oddly thrilling. There I stood, in her bra, feeling an undeniable mix of emotions I couldn't fully explain. Judy's gaze was warm and approving. She stepped back slightly, taking in the sight of me. It wasn't what I had expected for the evening, but her approval and the intimacy of the moment made it strangely exhilarating. I felt closer to her than ever, as if stepping into her world in a way I'd never imagined. I should have been embarrassed, even overwhelmed by the strangeness of the situation, but instead, I felt an indescribable euphoria wash over me. Wearing Judy's bra wasn't just thrilling, it was transcendent. A wave of almost indescribable pleasure coursed through me, leaving me breathless and exhilarated. I stood there, trying to comprehend how something so unexpected could feel so perfectly right. Judy stepped back into my view, holding her nylons and garter belt. Her movements were deliberate, her gaze piercing. "You want these too, don't you?" she asked, her voice teasing yet commanding. I couldn't stop myself. "Oh yes. Please, can I wear them?" I begged, my voice desperate and raw. "Only if you tell me that you are a girl and that your name is Mary," she said, her words laced with both challenge and expectation. "I'm Mary." I responded without hesitation, the name flowing from me as if it had been mine all along. I'm a girl. Please now, can I wear your garter belt and nylons?" "Go ahead, Mary," she said, a sleek smile bracing her lips. "Put them on." With trembling hands, I wrapped the garter belt around my waist, feeling the straps dangle against my thighs. I slid the first nylon up my left leg, attaching it to the straps, and then repeated the process with my right. Standing there in Judy's nylons and garter belt, I felt transformed. Her praise made me blush deeply. "You look very pretty, Mary," she said, and her words filled me with warmth and pride. As she removed her panties, my thoughts raced, singular and consuming. "Please, Judy," I pleaded, "please can I wear your panties? Only if you tell me your name, tell me what you are, and promise to call me Mistress from now on," she said, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Yes, Mistress," I replied, my voice steady and obedient. "I am Mary, and I am a girl." "Very good, Mary," she said, her voice laced with approval. "Okay, you may wear my panties now." Without hesitation, I pulled her panties on, feeling the last remnants of her warmth. The sensation was overwhelming, waves of pleasure coursing through me. I stood there silently, knowing instinctively that I was hers now. She was my mistress, and my role was to please her, to obey her. Slaves, after all, only speak when spoken to. Judy handed me 2 breast forms, her expression unreadable. Without a word, I placed them into the cups of the bra I wore. Their weight and shape felt foreign yet satisfying. "Mary, get on your knees and beg me to wear my clothes," she commanded, her tones soft yet firm. I sank to my knees without hesitation. "Please, my mistress," I said, looking up at her with reverence, "please let me wear your skirt. Please, let me wear your top." "And why do you want to wear my clothes, Mary?" she asked, her voice testing. "Because I want to be like you, mistress, in every way. You are perfect. You are a woman." "I want to be a woman, just like you," I answered, my sincerity pouring out in every word. "Arise, Mary," she said, granting me permission. "You may put my clothes on now." I carefully slipped her top over the bra, marveling at how the breast forms pushed the fabric outward, creating the illusion of curves. Next, I stepped into her skirt, fumbling slightly with the zipper, but eventually securing it in place. Fully dressed in her clothes, I looked down at myself and felt an overwhelming sense of completion. Judy moved to her closet, pulling down a box from the top shelf. She opened it to reveal a pair of black pumps, sleek and elegant. "These are in your size, Mary," she said with a knowing smile. "You may wear them if you beg me and tell me that you are my slave." "Please, mistress," I implored, my voice trembling with eagerness. "Please, can I wear those shoes? I promise I will always be your slave. Please, my mistress, I beg you." Very well, slave, she said, handing me the shoes. Put on your new shoes. The excitement surged through me as I stepped into the pumps. They fit perfectly, completing the look. Standing there, fully adorned in Judy's outfit, I felt beautiful. More than that, I felt alive. Her approval radiated from her smile, and I basked in the glow of it. I was Mary now, her obedient, devoted Mary, ready to do whatever she desired. The shock of Judy's revelation reverberated through me, leaving me trembling as I stood before her, my mistress. She had uncovered everything: my plans for Eric, my manipulation, and my intentions. And in a twist I hadn't foreseen, she had turned the very tools I had used on Eric back on me. Now I stood as Mary, completely hers, no longer in control of anything, and entirely devoted to serving her. Slave Mary, she said, her voice sharp and commanding, you thought you could control others, but now you understand what it truly means to be powerless. Do you? Yes, mistress, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I am powerless. I am yours. Judy's gaze was unwavering, her presence overpowering. Gwen is free of your influence now, she said. She belongs to me, just as you do. But unlike you, Mary, I will guide her back to herself. I will undo the damage you have done, and while I do, you will remain as you are, a reflection of me, an obedient slave, nothing more. My heart sank. Though I had once wielded power, it was now stripped from me entirely. I felt the weight of my servitude, yet I couldn't deny the strange comfort in surrendering completely to Mistress Judy's will. I was hers in every sense: body, mind, and soul. Mary, she continued, you would apologize to Gwen for what you have done to her. Kneel before her. Yes, mistress, I said, my voice trembling as I sank to my knees before Gwen. Gwen, I began, my head bowed, I am so sorry for what I have done to you. I was wrong to manipulate you, to take away your choices. Please forgive me. Gwen looked at me, her expression a mixture of disdain and pity. I forgive you, she said finally, her voice soft but firm. But I belong to Mistress Judy now, and I will obey her in all things. You may rise, Mary, Mistress Judy said, her tone softer now. I stood, my head still lowered, waiting for her next command. Judy turned her attention back to Gwen, her voice gentle yet authoritative. Gwen, she said, we will begin restoring you immediately. You will stay here tonight, and tomorrow we will start working on undoing everything Mary has done. I promise to help you become yourself again. Thank you, Mistress, Gwen said, her voice filled with gratitude. Judy's focus shifted back to me, her gaze piercing. Mary, you will spend tonight reflecting on your actions and what it means to serve me. From this moment on, you exist solely for my pleasure and purpose. Do you understand? Yes, mistress, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Good, she said. Now, both of you will follow me. Gwen, to the guest room. Mary, you will sleep on the floor outside my door. A slave like you does not deserve the comfort of a bed. Yes, mistress, I replied, my cheeks burning with shame, but also a strange sense of relief. As we moved through the house, I walked 2 steps behind her, just as she'd had commanded earlier. Gwen followed, her presence a constant reminder of my failures. Yet, as we settled into our respective places for the night, I felt a deep and abiding certainty. I was exactly where I belonged, at Mistress Judy's feet, living only to serve her. The night unfolded with a strange, surreal rhythm, every moment reinforcing the depth of my servitude and my transformation. As I stepped out of the bathroom, my reflection still vivid in my mind, I saw Gwen no. Eric standing awkwardly in the clothes I had worn earlier that day. The sight was jarring, a reminder of the fluidity of identity and how much power Mistress Judy held over both of us. Judy's voice was soft but firm as she spoke to Gwen. You are not Gwen anymore. You are Eric, a man. It is time for you to reclaim yourself fully, piece by piece. Her words carried weight, and I could see Eric struggling with them, the faint remnants of Gwen still flickering in his eyes. I stood silently, my hands clasped in front of me, waiting for my next command. My heart beat faster with anticipation. I lived for these moments, for the chance to serve, to prove my devotion, to make Mistress Judy proud. Mary, Judy said, her voice slicing through the quiet like a bell. Come here. I obeyed instantly, stepping forward and dropping to my knees before her. Yes, Mistress, I said, my voice soft and reverent. Judy reached out and gently touched my chin, lifting my face to meet her gaze. Her eyes were filled with something I hadn't expected: kindness. You have come far, Mary, she said. You have embraced who you are meant to be, and I am pleased with your progress. Thank you, Mistress, I whispered, my cheeks flushing with pride. She leaned back and gestured toward Eric. But now your purpose shifts slightly. Eric needs your help. You will guide him, Mary. You will show him how to reclaim himself. Just as you have found your identity, you will help him rediscover his. I blinked, the weight of her words settling over me. Yes, Mistress. I will do as you command. Judy smiled, a rare and genuine expression. Good. But before you begin, I want you to understand something important, Mary. You have been transformed not because you are weak, but because you are strong. Your willingness to submit, to adapt, to embrace change is your greatest strength. Never forget that. Her words filled me with a strange sense of power, even in my servitude. I was no longer the person I had been, and I was no longer in control of my destiny, but somehow I felt complete. Judy turned her attention back to Eric. And you, Eric, you will take these first steps willingly. The journey back to yourself begins tonight. Eric nodded hesitantly, his voice soft but resolute. Yes, Mistress. The three of us spent the rest of the evening together, a curious harmony forming between us. Judy guided us both with unwavering confidence, her presence commanding yet nurturing. Eric began shedding the remnants of Gwen, step by step, while I fully embraced my new identity as Mary, finding a strange and beautiful freedom in my submission. As the night came to a close, Judy dismissed us to our respective spaces. I lay on the floor outside her door, a small smile on my lips. For the first time, I felt not just like her slave, but like someone with a purpose, a role to play in helping Eric, in serving Mistress Judy, and in embracing the person I had become. My heart was light, my mind at peace, and I drifted to sleep with a sense of fulfillment I had never known. The unexpected twist wasn't the loss of my old self, but the discovery of something far greater: a life of devotion, of purpose, and of belonging. In serving, I had found myself.